Ben, great to see you.
Nice to see you, mate.
It's been a long, long time since I caught up with you. Greetings, music lovers. Angus Woodhead here from Pro Audio Trader. Today I have something very special for you. 16 years ago, I made my first purchase from this gentleman. I actually drove all the way to his old manufacturing plant. And today, the first time in 16 years, or 17 years actually, I've gone to the effort of coming to meet him. And you all know him, of course, you've all heard of his mics. This is Ben Sneesby from BeesNeez microphones. Ben,
How you going,
great
Angus?
to see you again.
You too, mate. It's been a while.
It's been a long while. Thank you for having me. And
Yeah, no worries.
Ben's given me a good look through what he's doing here. It's absolutely incredible. In fact, the amazing thing is 17 years ago when I first bought an Arabella, which is possibly Ben's most famous, would you say it's your most famously known microphone?
As an original mic, definitely. We've got, I think we're up to about 2,600 Arabellas that we've sold over the last 17 years.
So I bought an Arabella 17 years ago, and back then Ben only had three mics. He had the Jade, the James, and the Arabella. The Arabella was the flagship, and it came in a Chinese body.
It did.
You were just getting started.
Yeah.
And that mic was so beautiful. I wish I still had it because it was, it was my first BeesNeez mic, and over the years I've had a lot of BeesNeez mics, and they're fantastic. But basically, what's happened is fast forward 17 years, and I go on a limb here to say that Ben is probably one of the, if not the biggest, boutique microphone manufacturer on the planet. There's lots of mics being manufactured in China and Asia and different places, but Ben they make everything here in the factory in this funny little place. What's it called?
Golmerad,
Which is actually quite near. Where'd you go for
Yamba.
breakfast? Yamba. Everyone's probably heard of Yamba. Fantastic place. Ben, you've just showed me through the warehouse and the factory. Absolutely incredible, cutting edge technology. A lot of his mics are actually hand soldered. They're all hand assembled. But what he's been able to do is find a way to have the quality and the quality control perfect, but still have the personal touch and the human touch, handmade, hand tested, hand assembled. Ben, just tell us a little bit about this journey, the 17-year journey, and I'm going to let Ben just talk for a little while here because, we don't want to hear from me, we want to hear from you.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty fond of my own voice, but let's hear from you, my friend.
Yeah, look, since we met you 17 years ago, after quite a few phone calls, it wasn't just the first meeting. We discussed a lot of things, I remember.
I'm tough to
spoke
sell
a lot.
to.
Yeah, we spoke a lot. But look, it's been a really interesting journey. We started off making just capsules, and we were using Chinese bodies from the get-go because we wanted to spend, capsules are very labor intensive. We wanted to spend our time building the part of the microphone that actually was responsible for the sound.
Yeah.
So capsules
You were still using new old stock tubes, though,
we
weren't
were,
you?
and
Yeah.
we still are.
Yeah.
We still are, even
Beautiful.
now. So
new old stock
Yep.
tubes is basically a tube from the 50s or 60s that's been stored, it's brand new, never been opened, except for people that don't know.
yeah, new in box. So we, even now, we still have friends in Germany and we have some friends in England who spend a little bit of time for us looking in old munitions depots, and they just find boxes and boxes of tubes. Now, a lot of them are useless,
Yeah.
but you do find some crackers. You find some really good ones. Like recently, I was able to purchase around 300 original Telefunken EF13 tubes.
Wow.
New in box, new old stock, never been plugged in. So that was a score.
So the EF13, everyone knows the VF14 and the VF14M, of course, from the U47. The EF12 gets used quite a lot by manufacturers in U47 clones, as does EF14 sometimes.
Yep.
What is the EF13?
Okay, so The EF13 actually is the only one of the EF series tubes that's identical in both cathode and grid architecture as the VF14. So if you look online, if you actually type in VF14 versus EF13, there's some really good white papers written on those two tubes. Whereas the EF12 was used a lot because it was really loud and bold and it was quite a high output tube. And if something's loud, it must be better. So that's why the EF12 is used.
Yep.
The EF14 was used because it had the number 14 in it.
Okay.
EF14, VF14, they must be the same.
Yep.
They weren't, but they must be the same.
Yeah.
And then the EF13 was a tube that was used quite a lot. Even Neumann used an EF13 in the past, so it was used quite a lot. But because it doesn't have the number 14 in it, and it doesn't have a V next to it, then it wasn't used as much. But if you read the white papers, it's actually the only tube that has the same cutoff.
Wow.
That has the same output and has the same mu factor as the VF14. I'm not saying it is a VF14. I'm not saying
No. I'm not hearing that. But what I tell you, what I am hearing, reading between the lines, is there a new mic coming that utilises this?
Well,
tube?
yes, there is. We have at the moment we have our T1 Tribute 1.
Yes.
Tribute 1 has always used an EF13, 14 or 12 tube, depending on what people are after. But we are releasing a part for part U47 clone. We always tried to stay out.
Is this public knowledge yet?
I
you
guess
heard
it
it
is
first
now.
on this interview, folks.
I guess it is
There
now.
is a part for part U47 clone, because you never used to do clones.
We have tried so hard to not do clones. But for every original microphone we make, we get 20 emails wanting a clone. And people, you can't, in business, you actually can't deny people what they want. If someone wants something, then you either build it or somebody else does. So we have started making quite a few clone microphones. When I say clone, I'm going to say that loosely.
Well, your Tribute was never a clone.
That's
it was always
and
a Tribute 2, wasn't it? Yeah.
Even our classic series mics are not one-for-one clones, because we make some improvements, like transformer improvements, because transformers, the technology has improved so much over the last 50, 60 years.
And the power supply, that was always a weak link.
Power supply was a weak link.
Neumanns,
noisy, they hummed. We used toroidals in those as well because there's no noise.
So let's quickly talk about toroidal transformers.
Sure.
I had a look through Ben. They make everything, all the winds, all the transformers, absolutely incredible, makes all the capsules. But he showed me these toroidal transformers, and I first saw this when we did an 87 shootout. Some of you may have seen my 87 shootout. I think we did 8 or 9 mics on Gearspace, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. And that's when I opened them all up, and I saw the toroidal transformer. I thought, and it was big. It's a big transformer. And I remember we did a C12 mic shootout with a guy who will stay not named in Sydney, and the mic we were comparing it to actually crapped out under loudness, and you were explaining then that was due to the transformer not handling the dynamics. So just tell us a little bit about the toroidal transformer.
Toroidal transformers, the idea of a toroidal transformer is not new, but toroidal transformers weren't used originally to make audio transformers. They were used to make power transformers, crossovers. They were also used to make inductors, because you don't need a high mu factor core, basically high impedance factor core. You don't need that high inductance in a power transformer. You don't need it in an inductor, and you don't need it in a crossover. But when you're talking audio transformers and you actually want to have enough inductance to capture the bottom end, then you need to have a special or specialized core. These days, technology with glass amorphous technology, so where you're mixing glass and metal at its molten temperature. When you're mixing them and cooling them rapidly, you can roll them into a very, very thin layer, and you can have hundreds of different lamination layers in one transformer in a very small form. And that gives you your inductance. So basically you can have let's say you had a T14 or a T14T.
So these are transformers that AKG made famous in the C12 and stuff.
The T14/1 transformer from the C12 and 251 has a mu stack of like 22 layers of metal. So it's a very tall transformer. And to get enough inductance, they had to basically I guess you'd say they had to find a happy place or a happy medium. But the happy medium created too much capacitance, a lot of DC resistance, and those two together, when you combine them, are transformer killers. So capacitance kills your top end.
Right.
DC resistance chokes the transformer, but you need both of those to get the right amount of inductance. So they had to basically find a happy place where they didn't lose too much high end, they didn't have too much resistance, and they still had enough inductance. Whereas ours, we've reduced our winding, so we've reduced our DC resistance by a factor of 6.
Oh, wow.
6 times less
Wow.
DCR to compare to the original.
Wow.
Our inductance is 6 times more. So we actually have so much inductance in our circuit we don't need it. But it's there anyway.
Yep.
And the capacitance is virtually zero. It's
Amazing.
almost immeasurable because we don't have the winding or the turns count of the original. So you don't increase in capacitance.
Okay, we've got a little techie here. I apologise
Sorry,
for
guys.
that. This is great information though, and it's great to understand. What I just want to pull back a little bit. 17 years ago when I bought that first Arabella, you had 3 mics.
Yep.
Tell us about the range now, moving forward. Not exactly, maybe moving forward, what's happening?
22 mics in the range at last count, maybe more. Talk to Veronica, she seems to know more than I do.
Veronica's Ben's wife. It's a partnership, family business.
But yeah, so now the kids work in the business. So Arabella takes care. Arabella, one of my children, the original microphone, one of my kids. She looks after 4 of the different microphones. She looks after the Oliver FET, Isabel FET, the 87 IC and the 67. So she looks after those, and then that frees me up to look after other models in the range.
Yes.
But yeah, we have our tribute series.
Yes.
Our classic series, which
So
are
the tribute series is the most expensive.
It is. They're the most expensive microphones in the range. They're microphones that aren't clones, but they do give you the same sonic characteristics of the clones.
Okay.
But we use basically more vintage and more modern techniques in manufacture with those.
Yep.
We make sure that the metallurgy that we use is non-resonant.
Okay.
That's a big factor
Excellent.
in making that an
So
expensive
that the mic doesn't
microphone.
ring.
It doesn't ring, it
Yeah,
doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
Only the capsule resonates, and that gives you basically more of a solid sounding microphone. Then we've got our producer series. So they're our original microphones.
Okay.
BeesNeez original mics. So
Which is
they're
Arabella.
Arabella. We also have the Ellie Pro,
Yes.
so Ellie Producer Series. We also have the Felicity.
Oh yes.
So the Felicity, again, gorgeous sounding, but original microphone. So those 3 at the moment we have.
So
in the
these are
Producer
your own
Series.
designs.
They're our
Your
own designs. They're not a copy of anything.
Yep.
Someone might say, oh, that sounds a little bit like that, or that sounds a little bit like this. But they are totally original microphones. And they've been very successful for us. But 3 microphones is not enough for us to create a business around. So then we started the Studio Series. Studio Series are your hammers and your nails.
Okay.
They're,
So that's the low cost range.
I would say, affordable more than low cost, because they're still not cheap mics.
But they're not made in China.
That's right.
They're all still
made
done
here on the premises. The bodies, our machines turn out the bodies, capsules. We assemble them. Our pick and place machine pick and places the components. So they're less there's less human involvement. A couple of hours as opposed to 9 or 10 hours per microphone. But they sound amazing. They work really, really well, and they're like a great hammer. You can have a few of them in the toolbox, and you can use them every day, and they'll never let you down. So that's the Studio Series range. And then the Classic Series, people want their clones.
So this is where Ben and Veronica have taken the classic mics, the 67, the C12, the 251. What are the classic mics you're doing? The 67's obviously it's one that came out a couple of years ago. And it's been very, very popular.
It's been huge.
People are loving that. Just tell us about that series and the 67 specifically.
So we started off with the 87 IC. So it's an 87i cardioid only.
Love it.
The reason we did cardioid only is we wanted to remove the parasitic capacitors from the rear of the capsule and give the microphone an extra 6 dB of gain just from that parasitic capacitors removal. And then once we did that, we left, we didn't just gain there, we made circuit improvements as well by removing a few components that were involved in the switching of the polar patterns. We're able to gain another 3 dB. So you've got 9 dB increase gain output. So you're looking at neg 32 for that microphone.
Amazing.
And it's so you've got a massive sound, beautiful
Low
sounding
noise
microphone,
floor.
very low noise floor. So that was the first one. Then we released the 67. We released the 67,
Which was the version 1.
The version 1.
Yes.
And version 1 was in a smaller U89 size
89,
body.
Yep.
And then that got so popular, and everyone's saying, "Can we have a few more options?" We love the switching. We love being able to switch between a 269 and 67.
Yes.
We love that. We really love it. So can we have some more modes?
Yes,
So we thought, well, why not? It doesn't hurt. So we decided to go into a
So there's
full-size
internal
body.
switches, isn't there?
Internal switches. The internal switching is not laziness. We could very easily put switches on the external portions of the body, but internal switching, if you say to a manufacturer, I want you to make me a high impedance switching mechanism that can handle a 1 gig load, can you make me a bank of 6? They say, yes, absolutely, a bank of 6, no problem. If you say single switches, they say no. Because they can't get enough ceramic into a single switch to actually give you the high impedance factor that you need. So by putting it on the actual circuit board internally on the mic, which is only one screw to screw it off, we have around about 3 to 4 dB improvement in signal to noise ratio over the original microphones, and that's because the switching, better switches, and switching internally inside the mic body. So you're not running in a high impedance environment. Wires are again the enemy of high impedance. So by running it on the board, the maximum wire length is like 3 or 4 millimeters rather than 20 or 30 millimeters.
Yes, got it.
So that makes a huge difference.
Tell us about the rest of the range of the classics.
So in Classic Series we have the 87IC and 87. So the 87i is multi-pattern. Has pad, has your roll-off, has everything. 67 has your 67 mode, has your old and new modes as well. And has
what does that actually do? Is it a high frequency roll-off?
No. So what it does is it introduces the circuit, the negative feedback within the circuit has 2 different ways of I can send negative feedback, which is what does reduce your high end, your nastiness in that microphone. I can send it back to the transformer in 2 different directions. So basically I'm just changing the way I send it back to the transformer. So it's very new. It's something that's not been done before, but it works brilliantly. There
is some cutting edge stuff that Ben is doing, and the fact that you've got the staff working for you and you're less hands-on with the actual building of the mics means you can do more R&D and designing, step back and big picture stuff.
I can do things like today. I can spend a few hours with you and it's good.
It's been amazing. Ben, keep going on the classic.
All right, Classic Series. Our 10-minute, 45-minute interview. Classic Series. So now after the 67, we move into our BC12. We have a long body BC12, like the original C12. We have then also the BC12A tube, which is a short body in the your 414 design. And then we have the BC12A FET. So they're the 3 C12A type microphones that we have. So 2 C12 long body, 2 C12A short bodies.
I've been using a pair of the BC12A FETs as drum overheads. And just as a space pair, absolutely loving them. Fantastic. And anyone that knows, C12As are very regarded as the tube version, the vintage tube, as drum overheads. And the beauty of the FET is it handles a bit more level, doesn't it?
It does. It certainly does.
We know some of these drummers, they hit hard,
They do. And the architecture in a FET mic, a FET is actually a brilliant device. Like a field effect transistor is an amazing device. And you can load it so differently. So you can actually load it without it getting too squashed. And that's why a mic like that, the BC12A FET, we can load it quite heavily. We can give it a really big, high windings transformer, and it doesn't overly squash the microphone. So you end up with a mic that can handle massive SPL without becoming squashed. It still sounds airy. It still sounds really nice.
What's the next mic in the range?
Next mic, then you go to the 251.
Okay. So this is your latest mic?
This is our latest. Actually, let's digress. BM49 first, so we have the M49.
Yes, of course, yes.
BM50, so we have an M50 with a spherical capsule, and then we come to the 251.
So I just had a listen to this mic, and people in the industry, the U47 is very highly regarded and respected, but the most expensive mic, and possibly the rarest. I don't know. They're not overly rare, but is the Telefunken 251, which was actually manufactured by AKG for Telefunken. It has a CK12 capsule, and it's not uncommon for these mics to go for 30 to 40,000 US. That's a very expensive mic, and I just had a listen to this. The thing I love about, do you mind if I grab this?
Go for it.
I love the look of the historical power supply. Of course, the new logo. We've all seen the Gearspace thread. We're talking about the new logo. The new logo is amazing. You can see it on Ben's shirt. But this is a beautiful looking mic, and I'm actually I'm not going to get to take one away today, but I've ordered one. I'm very, very excited. Ben, can you tell us about the mic and just...
Sure. The 251, Telefunken is an interesting company, both in modern and in vintage aspects.
I don't particularly want to talk about the modern one.
No. So let's talk about Telefunken just for a moment. Ooh. Telefunken was using Neumann as a manufacturer, a third-party manufacturer, to build the Telefunken U47. Problem was, tubes started to run out, VF14 started to run out. Telefunken went into a bit of a panic, and they said, well, what are we going to do? We're going to lose sales. We're not going to have a mic to sell. So they went to AKG, and they said to AKG, we love your C12. Can you design something for us that isn't a C12, but, still sounds kind of like that, and it can be a Telefunken mic? And they said, yeah, sure. And they designed the ELM 251. Well, they designed the ELM 250 first, but then they went to the 251.
Yes.
Now, the beauty about the 251 is that it was the first effective field replaceable tube microphone. Now, what I mean by that is that's a whole microphone, as you can see.
Note also the historical mount system, which is excellent.
Even the pins and the plug. So I'll remove the plug, and I'll show you what they meant by field replaceable. Are you saying we can swap this with
every
vintage? Part of this can be swapped with the vintage mics. Wow. Every part. You can plug a vintage mic straight into this, it will work.
Ooh.
You can use
this
any
power supply?
Yep.
Wow.
Straight into that power supply. Okay. You can use any part of this microphone in a vintage, it will plug and play. So when we unscrew it, we unscrew the bottom. So this is pin for pin the same as the original, and then we'll place the cable up here. Field replaceable. So bottom unscrews, body slides off. So little jiggle on the head grill, and you pop the arms out. Head unit comes off. So first field replaceable item, head unit, including switching. And then if you had a noisy preamp, second field replaceable item.
Amazing.
So all of these are the same as the parts as of the original 251.
Beautiful. Okay, Ben, so just tell me a little bit about this part, which is obviously the sonics. We've got the transformer, we've got the caps, we've got the tube. I'm not here to teach you, how a microphone's built, but what I want you to tell me, tell the viewers is what's special about, obviously we've got the toroidal transformer there, and tell us about the tube. And
okay, so you'll notice here the capacitor, it says BeesNeez. Okay, so all the way down to the capacitor, we're doing our best to use modern technology. Everyone says it, but we are actually using modern technology or modern techniques and vintage manufacturing as well. So this is what they call a zinc nickel. So this is our own capacitor. Awesome. So it's a zinc nickel film. So rather like nickel film is it's too shrilly for a capacitor. Zinc film is very dull. Most companies in MKP capacitors, they use, which is polypropylene, they use zinc film. Okay. And they have to wind it very tightly for it not to sound dull. But we do a bifilia winding, so we use two filaments, and we wind one nickel and one zinc filament together in our capacitor and loosely wind it, and then we epoxy pot it.
Amazing.
And that gives basically a more linear capacitor. So it's not thuddy and dull, it's not bright and shrill, it just has a nice balance. And that's that. So that, you know, the decoupling capacitor is very, very important in a tube mic, because it takes the tube voltage and output. So you've got audio output, but you've also got 125 volts coming out. It gets rid of the voltage, but still allows the audio to travel through.
Amazing.
And that then goes into the transformer. So
Beautiful.
it's an important part. But tube-wise, we're the only 251 clone manufacturer using new old stock tubes. Everybody else is using Russian or Chinese 12AY7 or 6072A tubes. We're using new old stock 6072A tubes, or we also use a 12AV7. So 12AV7 is the same as the 6072 with a longer plate. So I personally prefer the sound of the 12AV7. To measure them, they're identical. Output's the same, capacitance is the same, U factor's the same. But I just like the sonic replication that comes from the 12AV7. So, but really, that's just 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It's just a personal flavour. But these, when people are ordering singles, pairs, we make sure that every microphone leaves plus or minus 1 dB to its mate. So whether it's got an AV7 or a 6072A tube, all new old stock, they're all going to sound the same anyway.
So all these internals, these are all actually hand soldered, aren't
all
they?
hand soldered by Steve.
Okay.
Steve's one of our employees here. Steve's been working with us now for about 12 months, and we've known Steve for many, many years, but 12 months he's worked for us, and he's a fantastic addition to the BeesNeez family. And Steve sits there and just painstakingly solders every component in place, in the right place, and gets all this assembly ready to go.
Now, does every mic get listened to before it goes out?
More than once, more than twice, actually, probably 10 or 12 times.
Wow.
When a microphone is first assembled, we listen to it straight away. So we warm it up, we listen to it, we make sure that it works.
Yeah.
From that point, we then burn it for at least 24 to 48 hours before we even start doing anything with it. Once it gets to that point, we then come into this room, which is our new listening room.
Yep.
We do proper audio testing. So we test frequency response. We test noise, signal to noise. We test basically every other facet of that microphone to make sure that polar patterns are working correctly.
Wow.
We also make sure that we re-measure everything, output's measured, so that everything falls within its pass-fail. So we need to make sure that all of our mics that leave have that same quality control.
Yeah, beautiful. Amazing, Ben. So I'm actually going to grab one of these myself. I'm very excited to give the 251 a try. Look, I think we've pretty well covered everything. It's a family business. I was interested to know, how many mics do you think you're selling a year these days? Can you reveal that number?
Probably. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
I'd rather not reveal it because
that's okay.
I try and it's nice to keep some things
That's okay.
to yourself. It's in the thousands, let's put it that way.
Beautiful. Let's put it this way. What are your most popular mics as of now?
Yeah, look, our most popular microphones, we have the Arabella and the Lulu Tube microphones. They're very popular. The 67269 is a very popular microphone. 251 is a very popular microphone. And our BM49s,
Yes.
and BC12s, we sell a lot of those.
Beautiful.
So they're our most popular.
So the
in range.
historically correct 47, obviously you're going to use an M7 capsule in that, and that's from the original design, from the original plans, isn't it?
From the original design, from what they call the large badge.
Okay.
So the large badge 47 had an M7 capsule.
Yep.
It didn't even have a BV8 transformer.
Wow.
And that's why we want to use that one, because we're not going to use a BV8 transformer, we're going to use our toroidal transformer. And we thought, well, why not design it after the one that didn't even have the BV8 in it? The BV8 was a secondary alternative to the original transformer.
Wow.
So, and there's numerous reasons as to why they changed, but a lot of that was supply. But yeah, so we're going to design it around that. So there'll be two available options. We'll make it available with the EF13 tube.
Okay.
We'll also make it available with a tube. It'll look identical to an EF13, but it'll be our own VF14 replacement style tube.
Wow.
So it'll be a tube. But the reason we're doing that one as well is that some people only want the microphone with a single B plus voltage. So 1 voltage coming out of the power supply. They want to be able to interchange that tube with a VF14. So that we'll do that so that owners who want to have a microphone as absolutely close to the original as possible, then they can have that option as well.
Beautiful. Ben, a 10-minute interview became an hour interview. I apologise for that.
That's all right.
That is packed full of information. I just love what you're doing. It's a beautiful part of the world. Your factory is incredible. Ben has actually hand designed and handmade a lot of the gear that you use in the manufacturing. And the end of this video is going to be, I'm just going to go into some footage that Ben's going to send me showing you some of the techniques. And of course, you can have a look on the BeesNeez site. You've got videos and things on the site.
We have a YouTube channel and things like that. But we will we'll give you some really nice close-ups of some of the manufacturing that you won't get to see anywhere really. Beautiful. Like it's so hard to see a capsule getting drilled, at 1 inch away. We'll show you that. We'll show you, actually shaping a backplate in the CNC machine. I'll turn the coolant off so you can see it done. We won't be able to use that capsule, of course, but
thank you.
But we'll do it so you can see how we do it, so you can see how it's actually done. There are, of course, portions of all manufacturing that are proprietary, but it's not the actual manufacture that's proprietary. We'll show you that, but some of our tooling, some of our machines
we don't
that
want
we
any
use,
secrets.
that's right.
That's okay.
It's not even secrets. Some things take years to develop.
Yes.
And you don't just want to hand it off to somebody else to start developing it. We've had to go We've had to go do it the hard way and go
18 years.
It's been a long time. BeesNeez started in 2001.
Oh wow.
But we were, preamplifiers,
That's right.
repairs, recording studio, and starting to work on capsule manufacture. But then it wasn't until like 2007 that we actually went down the path of, full-on microphones.
Amazing.
And then now everything. So it's really good.
Ben, I'm going to go so far, I'm actually going to say that the mics that Ben is now manufacturing, I would call them modern day classics. These are modern day classic mics, and I'm especially excited about the 251. I'll just come in and zoom in here. Can you put that mic together for me?
Sure.
Again, Ben,
Happy
just
to.
slowly, and so the viewers can watch the...
So you take the field cassette, as it's called, and you take your bottom skeleton, you line your nib up with so you've got a male nib, female nib, line them up, slide it down the rail, and that's those two parts together. Take your head grill, line up your pins, set it in place, clip the side rails, and that's now one piece. So that's now one piece all earthed out.
And clicked in, locked in.
It clicks in. And then you take your body, you see the spring arms, they hold the clips in place forever until you pull it apart. And then you take the bottom and you just screw it on.
And you've got 3 patterns.
Yes, you have Omni, Figure 8 and Cardioid.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So it's actually a clone of the 251E.
Yes, it is. So the export version, and the difference was the export version, it had the 6072 tube in it, whereas the non-E version had a AC701K.
Did it really?
It did.
Wow. Ben, fantastic information.
Thanks, Angus.
And I've just had such a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Talk soon.